I would like to welcome our first coach interview, I guess, postseason. The former head coach of Utah State and the Texas Tech Red Raiders, Coach Matt Wells. Coach, how we doing today, brother?
Good. How are you, Tyler?
Man, I just want to give you a big welcome. It's our first we do in all season. We interview coaches and get a little bit about their story and kind of peel back the curtain a little bit. I got to tell a story real quick. I know you and I talked about this on the phone. I actually, and you don't remember, but I met you. It was a very awkward moment for me. I met you this is about 3 years ago, I think. I had gone down to Dallas to recruit and to see a kid that we were recruiting and signing. And while I was down there, they were like, "Hey, won't you go by and check on this receiver?" I don't remember the kid's name. I don't remember what it was, but he was like, if we didn't get a guy, we were going to try to go in on him. He was kind of a backup guy for us, and I believe he was committed to you at the time at Texas Tech. And so I kind of stealthily go in there and I see the kid, and then I'm coming out, and you're going in. So you're the head coach. You're coming into the school with one of your assistants, and you were looking at me, gave me the look like, "Hey, what are you doing here?" And so I was like, "Hey, good to see you. Just come by, say hello to the coach. I'm in and out." So I got caught trying to be sneaky down there in Dallas by you. So I don't know if you remember that or not, but you kind of busted me. So it was a very
I
awkward
do. We
moment
made
for
sure
me.
he was committed real quick once we got into the school.
Yeah, we never pulled the trigger, but I remember calling Matt Luke on the phone when I got in the car. I said, "I don't think that one's going to be a surprise anymore, boss. I think they know we're here." So yeah, that was a funny one. But hey, so I want to tell a little bit about you. So I was reading up on you, and I didn't realize that your father was a dentist.
Yeah.
So when you were a kid, like, did you get in
Yeah.
trouble? Like, if you had a cavity or something, did you get grounded?
No, no. I mean, it's not cracked up to what people think. Honestly, I did the bare minimum, to be honest with you. I think that cavity stuff, and I'll say this, I'll get ripped by some of my dad's friends probably that are dentists, but I think it's a lot of genetics. I really do. You either got it or you don't. Like my poor wife, I mean, she gets cavities all the time. Um,
Coach, you're gonna get in trouble. You can't be
I don't
talking.
care. I mean,
She's gonna
I think
beat you
that's
up.
the truth. That's what we're doing on this podcast. We're keeping it real, right? Um, I'd be the guy that flossed like the night before. They got all
Okay.
those dentists have those signs. You don't have to floss your teeth, just the ones you want to keep. I've seen that since I was like 2 years old, right? Um, I would floss the night before, like I knew I was getting my teeth cleaned because that hygienist or him where they were going to try to make you bleed, right? Flossing. And I wanted to do it the night before to kind of get it out of the way. And then the next morning, the lady would say, "Oh, Matt, you've been flossing so much. You're not bleeding very much." Well,
Oh, so you're telling me it's just a big ruse this whole time? We've been flossing for no reason?
I don't know. I never got in trouble because I never really had any cavities. I don't think I really did anything special to not have cavities, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I get blamed for my kids' cavities now. Like, my wife blames me for my kids' cavities because she
Genetics.
says that I let them eat too much junk.
Well, yeah, I don't know about that, but
Because I'm a Reese cup fiend now.
yeah,
I can eat Reese cups all day long. I could eat it, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And
yeah,
so my 6 year old, he's just like his daddy now. His if it's like have you ever seen Elf, the movie Elf?
yeah, yeah,
So you know
yeah,
how he likes his sugar? That's my six
yeah.
year old.
Sweet
I mean,
tooth.
yeah, sweet
Yeah,
tooth. It's unbelievable. If it's not sweet, he's not eating it.
yeah.
So yeah, I get blamed for that. All right, this is a question that when we have coaches on, I think is very entertaining. I like to just ask a lot of them. What is the worst visiting locker room that you had to visit as a coach or a player or whatever? Do you have one that just like sticks out in your mind that you're like that fans have no idea about?
Oh man, I going back to the when I played at Utah State and coached there for 8 years. Man, I'd say San Jose probably takes the cake. That was pretty bad. Fresno was bad. Little bitty thin lockers, like remind you of junior high kind of, and then there was a long walk, but uh, and then you had to go past the dog pound, which are some great fans, awesome fans. I mean, they're passionate about Fresno football, but I'd probably say the worst. Yeah, I'd probably say San Jose, just small, cramped, really small. Oklahoma State here in the Big 12, I wouldn't say it's bad, but it's very strategically configured.
Yes,
I
it
mean, you
is.
can't address. It's hard to address. You can't address the whole team.
I've been in that one. I
Hard to
haven't been
address.
in. I never
You know,
went to San Jose or Fresno, but I've been to the Oklahoma State one.
yeah, it's a maze, right? And
Yeah.
it's hard enough to even address offense and defense like at halftime, making those adjustments. But you definitely can't address the whole team.
All right. So
Just
you were
because,
talking about you played at Utah State and coach there was head coach, assistant coach. You were there a long time. So I got to tell you a funny Utah State story. I bet you didn't know. So I don't think you were there at the time. I think it was while you were in between stops. But in 2003, I believe I was trying to remember. I was at Arkansas State as a GA, and we go out to Utah State to play. We had a good team, and we were building, and it was kind of our second year there, and we were coming off of a good season, and we were like 20 or 30 point favorites. Like we were supposed to win the game kind of easily. We go out there, and our kids, we got kids from Arkansas, Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi. We got all these Southern kids, and we're out there late November, so it's a little cooler first. All right, that's the first one. And so we go out
altitude
there.
factor.
What's that?
You got altitude factor too.
Yeah, we didn't tell them anything about the altitude.
Yeah, you didn't.
We didn't mention
that.
They don't.
Yeah.
They couldn't even spell altitude, so we were good there.
Now.
They didn't even know what that was. They thought altitude was something that you flew in a plane. They had no idea, right? So we go out there, and we come out for kickoff, and they do the haka dance right in front of our bench. Okay, our kids. It's the first time I'd ever been on a team where our kids were scared to death. I'm talking about scared to death, and I'm like, what are we doing? And we proceeded to get our teeth kicked in. And we lost. I mean, we were like 30-point favorites, and I think we lost like 50 something to 6. I mean, it was embarrassing. We got our teeth kicked in, and then and then the other thing that happened out there that I think you'll get a kick about this on is for the fans that don't know, the fans are right on top of you. Okay, yeah. I mean, I'm talking about. I don't know if they've changed it since I know they've done a lot of renovation there, but I'm talking about they were on top of you. And the benches were like dugouts, right? So the stands actually came over and you sat underneath. The benches were underneath. And so it was really tight. And so I was coaching gunners on punt return at that time, right? And back then, those days where you only had like 2 GAs and like you had to coach things, and now you got staffs of 75,000 people, right?
I hear you.
So I'm coaching the gunners, and I'm looking down. I'm about 30 yards away, and the gunner, and this is back in the old days, what we called spread punt, which is what the fans see on Sunday in the NFL, that kind of punt. Now you see all this rugby stuff, but old school punt. Our gunner gets jammed out of bounds, right? And so he's running down the sideline, which is what you would teach them to do. And they'd have to get back in, which is you could cheat a little bit and run down the sideline. And so I see the guy coming, and I step back, because I'm going to get hit. I'm in the white, and I step back, and there was like a 10-year-old ball boy from Utah State that was standing right next to me, and I had no idea. And so when I step back, he gets plowed. I'm talking about 10 years old, just gets smoked by the players running by. And it was right before half, and I come off. And I can laugh about this now because I think the kid's okay. I don't think he had any permanent damage. But when we came back on the field, he was sitting on the bench with an ice bag on top of his head, and he had blood trickling down his nose. So, that was my Utah State experience, Coach. I know you had some better ones, but I didn't have a great trip out to is it Logan, Utah, right?
Logan, Utah. So I
didn't have a good thing there. All right, so talking about Utah State, as a player, you played quarterback at Utah State back in the day. And I think you're like 4 years older than me. So I guess your last year I looked up was like my first year in college. So we're getting old, Coach. I've got gray coming in here and all that good stuff. But
I would too if I let it grow.
Let it go. What was as a quarterback? Do you remember like the hardest hit you took as a quarterback?
Yeah.
Because those were back in the day where it wasn't soft. They didn't take care of the quarterbacks like they do now.
Well, yeah, and we didn't have concussion protocol either, which I think is good. By the way, shoot, Tyler, as I remember, I remember playing those Colorado State teams in the mid '90s. Sean Moran, Brady Smith. God, those 2 DNs were really good. I think probably the 2 that take the cake, though. I remember playing Utah several times, and that was Luther Ellis. And Luther was a couple years older than me, and Bronzell Miller played on the other side. So, man, if you slid it, you had to slide to Luther. You had to put 4 hands on him. which left Bronzel Miller in a one-on-one. If you were in slide protection, that's not usually
That's a no bueno.
real good. But I would say Luther Ellis got me a couple times. I've teased with Luther over the years. That's why my back is still bad. But I mean, that guy, All-American, long time in the NFL, right? Detroit Lions for a long, long time. But I'd say those four guys, those are the names. I can still remember those names. Those guys, especially those two at Colorado State, they were good players. Took some hits from those guys.
You're trying to get coach to call a little bit more three-step in that game?
Woo! Yeah, empty, get the ball out, throw hot quick.
Yeah. All right, so let's talk a little bit about football. We like to pull the curtain back, but I'm curious because it's really hot right now. And as a head coach, I ran recruiting, I guess, when this thing came around, so I'm all in it. And talking about recruiting, but as a head coach and being a head coach for so long and really going through this whole development of it, what are your thoughts on the transfer portal?
Yeah. Well, and over the last several years, Tyler, you've seen it go from graduate transfers right now to an open transfer, immediate eligibility. And at Utah State, all the years, we would always hold a couple scholarships and benefit from getting some Power 5 transfers to a Group of 5 school that were grad transfers late. And we took advantage of that. That was the plan here. That was the plan here at Texas Tech when we first started, and we did it with all grad transfers. And then it opens up, and I'm for it. I like it. I think it's only right for those players to have that. As a coach, it's hard to manage, though. It really is. And I'd like to see, I know a lot of other coaches would too, maybe there's a little bit of a timeline on it, I know yesterday was just the day for underclassmen to declare for the draft. And then I think they've got 72 hours after to be able to pull back out, but something to be able to manage your rosters a little bit better for coaches. The month of December and half of January to me it ought to be, time to make that decision. There's been coaching changes, whatever. And then maybe open it up again, certainly after spring ball. I know May 1st, the deadline this year, but man, that's hard to manage. It's difficult to manage with your initials, and especially with COVID, with guys coming back and the rosters. And I would say everybody's is in flux a little bit and how many numbers you have. But overall, I'm for it. I think it's good for those players. And most of the time, I think guys are doing it for the right reasons and trying to play and find a place to play and have a good college experience. And for that, I'm all for it.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think that they can do this. They can create that window, right? So at least whether you say it's at the end of the semester, so all of December basically in the to January, but then with that they need to also take signing day, and they need to move it back to February if they do that, because of how it's killing high school recruiting. I mean,
I agree.
It's destroying it. And last week on the podcast we talked about there were some early numbers coming out. We're actually going to do a study once the last signing day is over with. But I believe it was a tweet by scoutingohio.com that one of my buddies, Joe Palcic at Western Michigan, showed me at the convention. But he showed the state of Ohio, and every year Ohio's had between 120 and 150 or so Division I prospects. And this year there's only 66 kids out of Ohio. I mean, that's
less than
insane.
Half. Yeah.
And so I think you're going to see that across the country. But I'm with you though. But I think if they shorten the window, and so now these coaches are like, okay, now we got to go fill these last spots with high school kids. And then the other thing that I don't know, I don't have an answer for this, so I really haven't approached it. But the other thing that a lot of people aren't talking about in the portal is how many kids are left in the portal that lose their education. Nobody wants to talk about those hot button topics.
Right now, only about 30% are getting out.
That's correct. And every year, it's been 67, 68, 69, 70% every year that it's been in play. And the amount of kids that are in it right now, I think I saw something the other day. There's enough kids in the portal right now to fully place the starters for 67 of the FBS football teams. I mean, it's nutty.
There's certainly a lot. You mentioned the signing day. The other part of that answer may be to move it up into August and let the guys that have been committed for a while, let them sign. Obviously, there's going to have to be an out for them if there's a coaching change or something
Right.
like that. Certainly they can redo. Go back through it again in December and January and revisit some of those schools. But um, I just think from a roster management, we got to help the coaches in terms of that with the time. Maybe there is a signing day early and a signing day in February, but the month of December is flat out crazy right now.
Right, and everybody's like, "Oh, well, it'll take care of itself," and it really won't. I mean, what do you have? I mean, you've been in coaching for a long time. What would you guess? 5 to 7 coaches are really safe every year. There's not that many coaches that are safe. You have to win, and so coaches have to win. They're not going to go, well, let me go sign this freshman, and then you're going to go portal crazy. I mean, it is what it is, but it kind of, I don't know. They have to do something because right now they're killing their product because there's no high school kids coming in, and sooner or later the supply is going to run out because everybody's transferring. So we'll see where it goes. But all right, so switching gears a little bit, this is called home visit, and it's one of my favorite parts of being in a home visit, but because I'm a foodie. All right, so but as a head coach or an assistant, okay, what was the best meal you ever had when you went on a home visit to see a kid?
The best.
Or
Man,
what's
I've
your
had a
favorite?
lot.
What's your go-to? What are you fired up about when you know it's getting cooked?
Well, no, I first of all, you're eating whatever's on the table.
Yeah, a lot.
You know that,
Yes,
right?
a lot.
You're not really making your order. And no, I've had a lot of really, really good meals. I think back, those a lot of those meals in Utah with especially the Polynesian families over in Hawaii. Those are hard to beat. Um, one night, Keith Patterson and I, my D coordinator for the last 4 years, we had a home visit in Central Texas, and man, unbelievable steak, grilled, um, roasted salsa because they grilled the peppers and the jalapenos and everything. It was awesome, and then he dropped me off at my hotel, and he kept driving. He got caught in an ice storm, spent the night in his car in his parking lot. That was a sheet of ice outside of Austin. I remember that meal because it was really good, and it was like the last one I had. It seemed like for a day or two there because we got snowed iced in. But a lot of good meals, Tyler.
So is it when you're the head coach? Is there a lot of do they come in your office and close the doors? Is there a lot of negotiating to see who gets to recruit Hawaii? Is there some kind of is there some kind of, hey coach, look now, I'm really good in Hawaii. I mean, how do you decide who gets to recruit Hawaii?
Well, usually you have a guy on staff that either grew up there, or, at least I did, or has connections to the islands and that kind of deal. The part that is funny though is the position coach is always wanting to go over for the third guy, right? It's
Oh,
not
coach,
just
there's
the
no
area
doubt.
guy, but the position guy. I'm in on every trip, and it's hard. It's hard to recruit Hawaii, and I know that sounds funny, but the time, the distance, red eyes, to try to maximize your time, and that's usually what it was. And so the travel part's difficult. Certainly not the eating or the fellowship. That's the best part.
Coach, there's no doubt. If I was on your staff and I was coaching receivers for you on your staff, I would have 47 wide receivers from Hawaii. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, in the spring for sure. Now, once we get out of spring, I'd be like, okay, whatever. But in the spring, I'm going to be recruiting 47 receivers in Hawaii. I'm
Yeah,
going to have to make a
you're
trip.
gonna need that position evaluation
Yeah, I got
too,
to go
aren't you?
watch them practice, coach.
Yeah, I
If I
know.
don't,
Yeah,
because I can't make a
you're like all the
decision,
rest of.
and I can't make a decision unless I get to go see them practice.
Yeah,
So we would
yeah,
have to, we'd have to do some
yeah.
negotiating with that on that deal. So that's awesome. All right, so I know you've spent some time on the West Coast, especially we were talking about it earlier in Logan. What is and you've played all across the north, everywhere else. What is the coldest game? Okay, the coldest game that you either coached in or you played in your career.
Yeah, I don't have a temperature for you, but man, I've been in some cold ones. The Humanitarian Bowl, Idaho Potato Bowl used to be the Humanitarian Bowl. That dates me, doesn't it? In Boise, early January. We had one of those January 3rd or 4th. That was
That's where
crazy.
the Potato Bowl was that day.
Yeah, in
Oh,
Boise. Um, those were cold. Mountain West, those Friday night, late November, 8 o'clock Friday night ESPN kickoffs. Um, the Mountain West Championship, my first year at Utah State, 2013 in Fresno was really. In fact, I was wearing some Gore-Tex pants and caught my pants on fire on one of the sideline heaters, and I was talking to the old linemen, and their eyes were down, and I'm like, "Give me your eyes." And one of the old linemen was like, "Coach Wells, your pants are on fire."
I was
And I
telling the
looked down,
story to my son, literally
So
either Saturday or Sunday, the Bills and the Patriots game, how it was like a really cold game. And I was literally telling the story of, I had leggings on underneath my khakis, whatever. I don't remember who were playing or whatever, but I had the same exact thing happen to me where I was coaching in between series and I had my board and I was sitting down and the heater was coming right there and I was on the board and smoke starts coming out from underneath the board because I had it in my lap, and it was my pants. my khakis were on fire from the jet heater. So yeah, I've been there, done that. That's a scary deal. I was like, whoa. I learned that I still had some quick twitch left. I got moving pretty quick on that one. So, and the equipment guy is mad at me, because I think I don't remember if I was at where we were at, but he was mad at me because like I burned my khakis. I'm like, what do you want me to do? It's not like I've sat there and tried to catch myself on fire.
Right.
But yeah, that's that's rough. I'm curious about that. It's like, are you like low key kind of upset when you get selected to play in the Idaho Potato Bowl in December and January? I mean, that's got to be like, of all the places that you could go, you're just going to go freeze your rear end off. Is that fire you up?
I think it depends on, let's go real talk. It depends on what school you're at and how many bowl games you've been. I know at Utah State, when we went back-to-back years in 11 and 12, that was the first two bowl games in quite a while at Utah State.
And, I'm with you there. You didn't really care where it was at that point in time.
And so then, at that point, the bowl game was like the first weekend in December. Man, those are the best. Or not the first weekend in December, excuse me. The first bowl weekend in December, which was like the third week right before Christmas. So you came out, you missed recruiting, but you bowl prepped, you played, you came back in the office for a couple of days, and then, man, you had your Christmas break, which was really good as a coach. So those were, I think it just depends on where you're at. And we were very thankful at that time at Utah State to be invited to a bowl game and to go there and to win. And so those were good days. Those were good bowls for us.
All right. So you're one of the very few I can ask this to. And, but as a player at Utah State, you went to the Las Vegas Bowl. Okay. And let's don't get you in trouble here with the wife or anything else. Your kids don't need to know anything.
1993.
Like, so the kids don't.
All State.
Yeah, your kids don't need to know anything about this. But I was a player too in a bowl game. So here's the question: as a player, was going to the Las Vegas Bowl as fun as it sounds?
Yeah, we had a pretty good time.
Hey, you don't have to say anything else, Coach. That's all. That's all you need to know.
You know what? I can remember. Those are vivid memories. Our team hotel was the Excalibur Hotel.
Wow.
I remember going, and I've seen it a couple times. I've been back to Vegas. I've seen the next place, and I know found a place that had $2 tables. I learned how to play blackjack with some of the older players. O'Shea's. We kept going to O'Shea's because it was $2 tables.
$2 blackjack.
We didn't have much money.
How about that? You don't see those $2 tables anymore, Coach.
No.
No, they like
I doubt O'Shea's has it either.
I tell people though, when I've been out to Vegas a few times with my wife, and I guess we've been 2 or 3 times now, but every time we go, I tell people it's actually now in Vegas, it's cheaper to gamble than it is to do anything else, because if you go to dinner and a show, you're out $5 bills before you even get cranked up. So it's actually cheaper just to gamble and eat and get your free buffet. But it's a fun time. All right, so this is another question I'd like to ask you as Coach, because we like to peel back the curtain a little bit here. All right, I have mine. I'll admit my new one, okay? But what TV show have you watched or do you watch regularly that if your buddies asked you if you watched it, you would deny it? You would just, to your guy friends, be like, I don't watch that. What are you talking about? What's your TV show? And you can blame it on your wife that you have to sit there and watch it with your wife, whatever it is. I'm about to do that. I'll admit mine in a second. What's your show?
Well, the one that comes to mind right now, since you just asked it, is lately I've had a little bit more free time on my hands, and I've been around the house a whole lot more. Um, I think she's ready for me to get out, but she always records, and I think I'm always scrolling on my phone, and then you eventually kind of start looking up, and you end up watching it, and you're like, what am I watching? I mean, she watches The Bachelor all the time. And so it's sitting there going in the living room or before we go to bed, and it's just
You just
drama,
happen to
and you're
peek.
like,
That's it. You don't really
yeah,
watch it. It's a peek, right?
no, I know, and I would deny it. And now
Yeah,
we're
yeah.
doing it on a podcast. You're probably recording this thing, and I probably can't deny it now.
Hey, you're just peeking. We won't call it
I'm just
watching. You're
peeking.
just peeking.
Yeah, yeah.
All right,
There's some drama on that thing.
I have to admit something. I came home Friday. Our kids, they had school shut down here on Friday, so I came home, and my wife was watching this show on Netflix called Cheer. Okay, which is like
Yeah,
it's
Jen was
like
watching it last night.
you
I
watched
did
it.
not. No, I didn't watch it. Jen was watching it in the bedroom. I stayed out and watched the Cardinals and the Rams.
Okay. All right.
Yeah,
So it's like a last chance you for cheerleading. And
yeah,
somehow I'm trying to, I was just trying to be a good husband. That's all I was trying to do. I really wasn't interested.
right.
I was just trying to be a good husband. But yeah, I watched cheer on Friday with my wife. So, yeah, I guess I'll bust myself too while we're at it. So yeah,
Yeah.
it is what it is. All right, so let's go back to football a little bit here. So,
Okay.
being in the business for better part of 25 years, you've been in, and as a player, and longer than that. What are kind of your thoughts on NIL and where it's at and where it's heading? What's your thoughts? I'm curious because obviously you've been a head coach and player and coordinator. You've kind of been through every gamut. What's your thoughts?
Yeah. First of all, I think there's a lot of good to it, and I always see the good in these things, and I think it's good for the players to be able to, um, be compensated for some of their talents and their abilities, and I think that's awesome. Um, I think there's a management part of it with coaches within the locker room and in your building, and in terms of the education piece of it, and it's not going to be equal amongst your team, just like it's the NFL roster's not paid all the same. Certain positions get paid different, and I think there's some similarities there. I think there's some responsibilities that are taught to the players in terms of their time management and whether it's their taxes or anything like that now they're responsible for. I certainly think we've seen over the last several months it take of a life of its own in terms of some schools and their recruiting and all that. And you always, those are some unintended maybe consequences of it, but I don't know if it's a consequence or not, Tyler, but it's here to stay. That train's left the station. I think it's about managing it as a head coach and your team being mature about it and guys handling their responsibilities in the right way. And so um, I'm for it. I really am. The last year here at Tech, I thought our locker room handled it very, very well. And I don't think it affects recruiting drastically. Yes, it does a little bit. And there'll be a handful of those cases, I think. But in terms of Group of Five and Power Five, I think it all is going to work itself out.
I'm curious here, kind of following up on this because you're actually the first head coach we've had on since this rule came to pass. Had a bunch in the off season, but are you were you worried? I guess is the bigger question. Is it leading up? Is it when it first started? Were you worried about how, like, all right, if your quarterback went and got $1 million or whatever, your quarterback, because that's who's getting paid, right? The quarterbacks. If your quarterback went and got a big deal, were you worried about how it affected the chemistry inside the locker room?
I was. Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's why we addressed it from the beginning, and we talked about it. And you talked about how it's just fast forward, for those kids 2 or 3 years. That's what it's going to be like if they ever get a chance to go to the NFL. Businesses are like that. The CEOs are making the most, the CFOs on down to the managers and all of that. And as you, just like in business in the NFL, it all has a certain structure and a certain pay structure. Um, with the higher pay comes higher responsibilities, or excuse me, more responsibilities. And so I think just addressing it and and talking about it, our guys here handle it awesome. and some guys got paid more than others. And I think just the reality that that's going to happen, but with that comes responsibility.
Yeah. It's just like anything, I've always been a gray area guy and trying to find the ways to use the rules to, you got to know the rules to be able to use them to your advantage, and does it, as a head coach, does it concern you or does it bother you how other teams are using it, really stretching it to the gray area to help them in recruiting? Is that a concern or a bother?
I think the biggest thing, Tyler, is all coaches want is somewhat of a level playing field in the league that you're in.
Right.
You want it to be the same, and you want the rules to fit for everybody, and that's, I think that's what most coaches will want.
Yeah, and it gets like, because it's getting, in the Southeast, it's like legal cheating. It's what it's turned into in some aspects. Not everybody, but in some aspects. And I guess the part that probably bothered me the most, I talked about last week, was how you got people in the portal that are literally saying going to the highest bidder, and it's just, I don't know. It's just, you ain't got to say anything on that. I don't want you to say anything on that, but we'll get off of that. But all right, so here we go. You got a free weekend, okay? The Magic Fairy comes down.
I've had a lot of free weekends lately, Tyler.
hey, it's not all bad. It's not all bad. You miss it, but it's great. I will say this: I miss the hell out of coaching. I really do. I miss the competition. I miss the competition and the camaraderie more than I do anything with the guys and the coaches. But it's been a really cool thing for me to it's weird because I've kind of reconnected with my family that I never got a chance to do before. So that part's been good for me. But I'm sure
I would
you're doing
agree
the same
with all
thing.
that. Same.
Yeah. All right, so you got a free weekend. Somebody comes and gets your kids. You got 3 kids, so somebody comes and keeps your kids. Money is not an issue. Money is not an option. It's not on the table. You get to take your wife away for a long 3 or 4 day weekend. Where are you going?
I'm probably going to Cabo.
Cabo. I've never been to Cabo.
Yeah, it's awesome. Weather's always great. Good golf, restaurants, the beach. I mean, Edith's, the office, Floor Farms. Those are great places, and it's easy to get to. So that's where I'd go.
Don't talk it up too much because my wife listens. She may be having me on a plane to go. I may be writing a check to go to Cabo. So don't talk it up too much, right? Yeah. There's got to be something. Is there a negative down there I can throw in when she brings us up?
No.
Come on, Coach. You got to help me out a little bit.
No, come on, man.
All right. So, all right, that's good. All right. So you mentioned it. Are you a golfer?
I enjoy golfing. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
What's our handicap?
The end of last summer, I was a 9.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. That's I aspire to be a 9.
Yeah.
I cannot keep a handicap.
Yeah.
I'm if any, and the people that are listening that have played with me understand this.
Yeah.
I get accused a lot of sandbagging, but I'm really not. I can it's every hole that I line up on, I'm a threat to eagle. I'm also a threat to like throw up a snowman real quick. Yeah. I'm not scared of going out of bounds.
Yeah. Ball in pocket. You can do that real quick.
I can do that. I will, because I swing very hard at a golf ball. Like that's the whole point of, like, it's not entertaining to me to lay up. I don't lay up. If I can see the pin, I'm going for it.
Yeah.
And I don't care. It could be like carry 270 over water and I have a 3-foot landing zone. I'm going to think I can pull that shot off. And then 100 times out of 100, I'm going to be in the water. So that's me. So I'm good at scrambles. I'm a scramble guy. I'm great at scrambles. Now you may not be able to use about 5 shots a day, but they're 5 good shots.
They're a good 5.
Yeah. What's your favorite? If you had to pick one course, what course you plan on? One course.
Pebble's hard to beat.
Is it?
I'd probably go to Pebble Beach if I had one more round.
You had one more round, Pebble?
Yeah.
How many times have you played out there?
I don't know. 7 or 8.
All right. What's the lowest score you've ever shot on a lowest score ever? 18 holes, lowest score. What you got?
At Pebble?
No, just in period.
Oh, anywhere? Heck, I don't know. That's a good question. I don't know.
Yeah. Have you gone below par before?
No.
Nope.
Never have.
77 is mine, so I've never gone below 77. So that's
What'd you
my
shoot on the back nine?
what's that?
What'd you shoot on the back nine?
39.
I'm just messing with you, man.
Yeah. No, I remember I went
I thought
38,
you said
39.
you got 77 on the front.
No, I went 38, 39. I will never forget it. 38, 39. So and it was at the University Golf Course out here at Ole Miss,
Yeah.
because it's built for me. They built that golf course here.
Oh, did they?
Yeah, because you grip it and you rip it, and wherever it lands, you can find it. Like, it's wide open. Like, there is no danger. So I may be hitting off the opposite fairway, but grip it, rip it, and go get it. So that's my spot. I can go low there. All right. So besides football, which we all obviously know football, what sport do you follow or do you watch besides football, if any?
Oh, shoot. I like all of them. I follow basketball. I'm big. I love March Madness, college baseball, especially in Omaha. Got to go see the Red Raiders play up there a couple summers ago. It was awesome, my son and I. But probably just their sports, following Wyatt around and watching his travel baseball team and basketball and football. My daughter, my middle child's a competitive gymnast, so we're all over the state of Texas in all spring semester watching her compete in gymnastics. So we stay busy, but I would say all of them.
My wife would be jealous. My wife was a gymnast. She was a gymnast at Auburn when we met, and so we had all boys. So she never got to do the gymnastics thing, but it's probably a good thing. The good Lord probably knows what she's doing, because she'd probably be tough on them. But Texas. She says Texas is where it's at in the United States in gymnastics. So
it's very competitive. Yep.
Yeah, she loves it. All right, so the last football question before we get out of here, but what kind of your thoughts? I'm curious, being now that you can probably talk about it a little bit more because you're not a head coach right now, but as a head coach, kind of what are your thoughts on the college football playoff expansion?
Yeah, I'm for it. Most guys are. I'd be for 8. It's really just, the reality is it's one more game. That's it, and max, what would it be? 15, 12, and 13.
If you go 8,
whatever, 16.
if you go 8, you'd have the 8-4. You had 4 additional games. Okay, but I'm with you. I don't see there's a reason. I've said 16 was kind of my number back in like the old FCS days and that 1AA, what we called them.
Yeah.
And that way, every conference gets a guy in, like they did in the old 1AA days. Every conference gets a guy in, then you have the 6 at large. That creates, but I think to do that, you would have to take away one regular season game, right?
Yeah, you may have to do that, and then how does that affect the bowls?
That's the
those
question,
bowl
right?
experiences are really fun for those players, and we mentioned one that that I got to play in college. You remember that experience? It's awesome. I'm a traditionalist in terms of the bowls. I like that, but I do think there's merit to expanding this thing.
Yeah. I just think, it's kind of like I think the cool thing about March Madness is I just think it'd be betterment, whatever they expand it to, or 8, 12, 16, doesn't matter. I think when players have hope at the beginning of the season, there's something to really work for. I think that's what you get out of March Madness, right? I think that's just it's a cool thing. I think it makes, we were talking about if you go to 16, like those Tuesday night Maction games, they mean something now. People, I think you create more people watching and tuning in if it has playoff implications and all that stuff. So anyway, it is what it is. But yeah, I think it's. Do you think on that same topic? Do you think we're going to have like a college football commissioner? We're going to have a guy that's in charge of this thing to get this thing rolling. I'm putting you on the spot here. I didn't tell you about this one, but do you think we're going to have a commissioner of college football? Because it seems to me, the more I'm out of it, the more I see it. But when you have these college football playoff meetings, the Big 12 has his guy, the SEC's in there, the ACC, and everybody's trying to pull their own agenda, and we're not getting anything done. Do you think we need a commissioner?
I think in terms of that, if you keep it that simple, Tyler, one guy can help, facilitate discussion, but then somebody's going to have to make a decision at the end of the day.
Yeah.
What's the best thing for college football? And I think there's a lot of coaches that would be in favor of that proposal.
Would you be in favor of a college commissioner as a head coach?
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I'm glad you said that, because I am, but I've never been a head coach, and I don't know. And look, I tell people all the time, kind of your window and what you do, but as a head coach, and then talking about that, that's a good segue. So when you became a head coach, a lot of people tell you, you interview for jobs and you've been an assistant for your whole time, but then it comes that time when you become a head coach for the first time and you
Right.
think you're ready and you think you know everything. But what kind of, when you became a head coach, like what's one thing that happened that you wasn't prepared for that people don't know about that you never saw coming? Because I've heard a lot of coaches say, man, you never know until you sit in the chair. Like what's
Yeah.
something that you wasn't really expecting, I guess, is kind of what I'm getting at when you became a head coach.
Yeah. Two things come to mind because I go back to when I first became a head coach was December of 2012 at Utah State, and really, Tyler, all I'd ever, you feel like in this business you were trained and wanted to call ball plays and be an OC for me, and I was that at Utah State, and then you have a chance to become a head coach because of the success of your team
Right.
and someone moving on, and that was certainly the case with me. And I remember that first week on the job. I had a player, a linebacker from Miami. Um, brother was murdered,
Oh,
and was in my office within I don't know, it was the first week, a few days after being head coach, and um, he was sitting in my office, and I haven't had that experience. I didn't have that experience. I've got one brother, and just sit there and listen, and now all of a sudden you're dealing with that situation, and really for the first time in my life, um, you learn to really listen. And the one
yeah.
thing that I've always tried to make it a habit as a head coach, especially as a head coach, is to never say to a player, "I know what you're going through," unless I'd been through it.
That's a
And
good point.
so while that never came out of my mouth that day, just learning to listen and try to understand what a young man's going through. We don't really get trained for that as coaches, and I think it's an ability that is extremely needed as a head coach. You need that. You need to be able to relate, and part of relating is just listening. And so, in going to that, um, my dad passed away 3 years ago. This May it'll be 4. Um, and I'll never forget that very next fall in 2018, I had 2 players within a week lose their dads. And so now that was an opportunity for me to say, I know exactly what you're going through because I'm still going through it. And just being there for those guys and being there for your players, I don't know if you're ever prepared for that, and you don't get prepared for that. The other thing is just time. The second thing that I think of is just time and the conversations that you have to have as a head coach that are very important. Um, you know, um, a veteran coach told me, I've been a head coach for 22 years. He shared with me right after I became a head coach, he said, "Matt, you need to understand that now as a head coach, every conversation that you have may not be your most important of the day, but it's a pretty good chance that it's that other person's most important conversation of the day. Whether it's an assistant, a player, an equipment manager, an academic person, an administrator, it doesn't matter." And he likened it to, remember when you were an assistant coach and you'd walk by the door of the head coach and you're like, is he in a good mood? Is he in a bad mood? Is it good? I got to go talk to him about my wife's doctor's appointment or a child or something I need to miss. And you're trying to always find that right moment. And I think people out there can probably understand what I'm saying. And you're like, boy, I got to catch him at the right time or the right mood. And, when the knock on the door comes and it's, "Hey, coach, can I have 2 minutes?" It's not 2 minutes, it's 5. And coach, you got 5 minutes. 5 minutes is 15. And the reality that those are very important conversations. And those are times where, as a head coach, you have to just sit and you have to listen. And you have to listen for what they're trying to ask you and to try what you're trying to solve and how important it is. And I think that's one of the biggest things that I learned and was, I think most head coaches aren't ready for that. And there's nothing you can do to prepare it except when you get in that situation.
Man, that's a great point. I've never heard anybody say that before, and I've been I've been around some good ones. I've never heard anybody say that. That is about as good of advice I've heard in a long time. Um, because you are as an assistant. I was telling the story the other day about how I was one of the guys that worked for me. It's not public yet, but he just got a SEC head recruiting job, right? And we were talking, and I said, one thing I found was, there's things that you have to have answers on, right? So the assistants are calling me asking, are we going to go on a player or whatever, right? And then I have to communicate that to the head coach, get the answer, then relay it because they don't want to talk to the head coach for whatever reason, right? So I actually found I communication improved by me traveling with the head coach on the road because he was sitting next to me the whole day. He didn't have a choice but to answer and talk to me all day. And so I was able to improve communication because I was sitting next to him during the contact period, during the time when decisions are being made. And so I was giving him and talking about that. But you're right. You don't realize that, but as an assistant and as a running recruiting, you're always like, you're trying to figure out, especially when I was with Nick Saban, you're trying to figure out what kind of mood, and coaches know if you work with Nick, you just don't go talk to him before 10:30 because he's not in a good mood. So, wait till 10:30, then you go talk, you know those things. And so that's interesting that you say that. So that is great advice for head coaches. And I know we have.
It's funny you said that about assistants. So I've always heard my assistants are like, boy, if you really want to know what's going on in the building, ride around with Matt and recruiting for a day in December or January and listen to the phone calls he takes. You'll find out what's going on in the building real quick.
I know, right? I mean, it's nuts. But Coach, I really appreciate your time. And you don't know this, but I've had so many coaches reach out to me and about how, and I'm so glad I got a chance to sit down and visit with you about how great of a human being you are. And we like, I'm always a proponent of coaches. You didn't know this, but several episodes back in the middle of the season when you were having your fun, me and my man DJ Elliott went off on your defense. On here, we pull for coaches. You're truly one of the best. Everybody that I've talked to, I can't find anybody that has anything. Not that I'm looking, but it's all 100% how great of a guy you are, and how good of a players coach you are. And by the way, and just so you know, we have this record going now to where everybody that does a show on here, they get like these big time jobs. So maybe some of our luck will come over on you. We're like 10 for 10 right now. We're on fire right now. So.
I'll take it.
Look, you truly are. I mean, everybody, like, you're one of the most respected guys in the business. And I want you to hear that from a coach's standpoint, from an old coach's standpoint, but
thank you.
How much you're admired and respected in this business. And I really appreciate you joining us today.
Thanks, Tyler. Appreciate you having me on, and cool deal you're doing here for coaches and for college football, and kind of, as you keep saying, pulling back the curtains, layers off the onion, whatever. But fun to visit with you. Thanks for having me on.
You bet.